Hello, hello. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Welcome in, welcome in. Thank you so much for being here. If you are a new listener, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my podcast. I am your host, Leticia, and this is the Healing with Leticia podcast. And this is some new information. So I have decided to change the name of my podcast. So originally I have it being Lessons from a Therapist. And I'm actually typing this in right now. Maybe you already noticed the change on the title. But it now says Reflections from a Therapist. And I decided to do this because I did catch myself being a little bit hard on myself, feeling like, every week there has to be a lesson or something to learn. And although that's great, I hope that I do bring something to the table for you to ponder on and learn and, feel like maybe you have a new tool from time to time. I also don't want that to feel like a big pressure on me since, as a therapist, which I am a therapist, I am doing that all day long with clients of my own. So I definitely want to have this space here to just be able to bring anything that could be helpful, that could be healing, but that doesn't always have to feel very structured and doesn't always have to feel like teacher to student, if that makes sense. So this is why I decided to change the name. So now the name is Healing with Leticia Podcast, Reflections from a Therapist. And that just feels better. Now, I don't know what the future is going to bring. Maybe I'll change it again. I want to allow that space there in the case that, this doesn't feel right. Well, I do want to make it feel right, whatever I feel comfortable with. And, of course, that's also going to benefit the audience that is listening and, just have it run more smoothly for me. So let's see. I hope that you all are having an amazing, great week. It is Friday. It's one of my favorite days of the week, although Fridays generally continue to be busy for me, even though I'm not working with one-on-one clients. But, it's a good day. It's a good day to start off the week, and hopefully you all are having a great week. So the last episode, because I have a little spreadsheet here that I make some notes on. The last episode was just like a quick check-in with what I was up to at that time, because I did become really busy and I wasn't able to record too much, and I was in the middle of a training and traveling and all kinds of stuff. So for this episode number 6, hopefully that is correct. I do believe it is episode number 6. This one I wanted to focus on boundaries, and this is a very sensitive and close topic to my heart, because this has been one of the most difficult life lessons that I've had to continue to practice, because a lot of healing has come from implementing boundaries in my life, but also healing is not linear. So there are times where you could feel like you're taking a step back and then you're moving forward, and then you take 3 steps back, and so that doesn't mean that you're not learning and that you're not healing. It's just that sometimes we get challenged in these types of ways to put to use what we have learned. And so sometimes people come into your life and they will test you, to see if you really have learned that lesson, and do you value yourself enough to give yourself the space to be respected. And, boundaries, lack of boundaries, that is the way that people try to test you out, to see if what you're saying is something that you really mean. So I actually looked up the dictionary definition of what boundaries are, and this is what was there. It says, a line that marks the limits of an area, a dividing line. Okay, so this is my way of defining this that actually makes more sense. And I don't know if I looked this up or this was just something that, because I kind of came up with this a little while ago. probably like over a week ago or so. But this is how my brain understands boundaries, and I feel like it makes more sense because when I think about boundaries, it really has a lot to do with relationships, the relationships that we have with people. So this is what I have. The way I define and best understand boundaries are the limits and the rules we set for ourselves within relationships. So again, this is going to be primarily with the people that are in our lives. And what I did was I have different categories for boundaries and how they affect that area of our life. And I have them numbered, so I'm going to just jump right in. So the first one is career or your job. So, whatever you're doing for work. And work boundaries, this is something that I've been challenged with in the past too. Overworking, if you're still in that phase of your life of people pleasing, then this might look like the type of person that maybe works too much, doesn't get off on time, overtime, sometimes no overtime pay. You're just doing it because you feel like you have an overcommitment to your boss or to whoever it is that is asking of you to complete certain tasks and things like that. So, work boundaries are important here because you need to have a balance with everything in your life. And so if you're overworking yourself to death and you're not having time to rest and recharge and to keep your plans after work or whatever it is that you're doing for yourself, well, this is going to bleed into other areas of your life because, there is such a thing as being a workaholic, right? I'm sure you all have heard of this before. And I used to be one of those people. And if I'm not careful, sometimes I can go in that direction. So anyways, work boundaries, definitely honoring your time. If you're only supposed to be there for 8 hours and that's what you agreed to, and let's say that you have a family commitment or something that you want to do for yourself, it doesn't always have to include someone else, then, you want to keep that commitment to yourself. Because, some jobs, some careers can really just keep taking and taking and taking, and they're not going to think about how much they're taking unless you decide to put that line there and draw the line and say, hey, you know what, I can't keep doing this. I'm feeling burnt out. And you can quickly become resentful about your job and your career if you are overdoing it. At the beginning, it seems like a good idea. Maybe if you want a raise or if you're trying to impress an authority figure. And, that can also be for other reasons. Could be childhood stuff, trauma there with trying to people please a parent and wanting to get praise for the work that you're doing or something that you never got praise for. So that's how working too much can also come into play with some of this stuff. But anyways, that's the career portion of having boundaries, and then also with your I want to call them colleagues, coworkers is what I was actually looking for. So with your coworkers, right, having boundaries with them. Sometimes you can have coworkers that are gossipy or that want to be in your business or, spreading different rumors about people. And so if you get caught up in that, wanting to have a boundary for yourself with how much you share, if you feel like that's not an environment to be doing that in, keeping it professional and then keeping personal stuff out of work is going to be really important, especially for what you do for a living. And especially if you're not thinking that the people that you work with are very trustworthy. That's a big sign for you to be careful, with how much you share and just having boundaries in general there. Now, number 2, I have it being financial boundaries. And so this could be material, how much you're buying or how much someone's trying to take from you. And so there needs to be boundaries even with yourself, right? We hopefully are all budgeting in a way where, because obviously things are very expensive right now and we never know what could happen in the future with different things. And so obviously it's good to save money and to be able to have a balance. And we always come back to the same thing, right? Just having a balance. we need to have a balance with time at work. We need to have a balance with how much money we're spending. And then also we want to spend money too sometimes, right? I mean, it's not going to be good to be too much, too rigid and also have no limit at all with how much you spend. So financial boundaries is another one there. And, not having also, there's definitely financial abuse and control sometimes in relationships too, especially romantic ones. So you want to check in with that too. I mean, no one should be completely in control and having all of the power financially in a relationship. So that would need a boundary, right? Like for someone to tell their partner, like, I don't agree with you telling me how much I can spend, or if I don't have any access to the accounts or whatever that looks like, there needs to be a balance there, because that would be financial abuse. So number 2 is financial. And then number 3 is mental, which can also be like intellectual boundaries. So I have that being, respecting your own thoughts and feelings. Do you honor those? Do you let other people force their opinions and values and beliefs onto you? You have to be considerate of what it is that you choose to believe in and what feels right for you. And there are people that sometimes will come along and try to force you to believe in what they believe in, just because that feels best for them. And that doesn't mean that that's the best thing for you. So, that's where having mental, intellectual boundaries come into place, because, you're allowed to believe what you want to believe in, and others are also allowed to believe in what they want to believe in. But there are people out there that are not okay with that, and they will come and project onto you what it is that they want you to believe in. And that's where you have to have that boundary and say, okay, well, that's good. Believe what I feel best for me. So that's an example of mental, intellectual boundaries there. And then we have emotional boundaries. Okay, this one is probably the most sensitive one to me, and maybe for you, I don't know. But in relationships, right, like with people, there is a difference between being empathic and being supportive, rather than taking over and internalizing someone else's feelings. There needs to be a balance there too, and a boundary there, because especially if you are an empathic person, a person that's intuitive, a person that can really feel emotions on a deeper level, then you might actually absorb other people's emotions, and then that now affects your personal life. So, being empathic for someone else, but without dismissing your own feelings is important. And, having a balance with how much you sympathize with someone, and not feeling responsible for having to fix other people's problems, but still being able to care and being there as a supportive role. And this is something that I do share with clients a lot, and I have to remind myself too. You can be a supporting role, but you don't have to be in charge of trying to solve and fix anyone else's issues. So, that is a huge lesson that I've had to sit with lots of times, because, I think it might be something with being the firstborn where I feel like I need to go into solution focus mode or saving or solving a problem. But, it's not my responsibility all of the time to fix other people's problems. Even as a therapist, sometimes I just need to weigh things out with a person, and then that person decides on their own what it is that they need to do for themselves, because that's what feels best for them. So, and there is an example here that I had typed up. So, I forget where I got this from, but just because someone cuts themselves doesn't mean that you cut yourself and bleed with them. Instead, you get them a Band-Aid. And that might have been my spiritual coach, actually, Elif. She says stuff like that sometimes. But anyways, and I think that that's a perfect example, right? Like, you don't need to cut yourself and also bleed with someone to understand that they're in pain. You can still be there and be supportive and understand, but also know and understand the difference of where you're at with what is going on with you. And sometimes when you don't have a good balance with how much you empathize with others, or actually sympathizing would be the right word here, because empathizing is understanding how someone feels versus sympathizing, which is taking on and feeling what that person feels. And that can lead to emotional enmeshment. So hopefully that was explained in a way that makes sense. So empathizing is understanding how someone feels versus sympathizing, which is taking on what someone else is feeling and then, eventually feeling the same way, which is not healthy, obviously. So now moving on to spiritual. So this is going to be in regards to, are you a spiritual person? Do you believe in religion? What are your core values here, your beliefs in regards to that? And this one, can cause a lot of issues with people, especially if someone doesn't agree with what you believe in, or if you're agnostic or atheist or, whatever it is that you decide to believe in. This can cause some issues between people because some people might not support or believe in what you believe in. But that's not very mature, right? I mean, we need to be able to understand that we're all different and we're all allowed to believe in what we want to believe in. And sometimes people change their minds later down the line too. I mean, maybe they're spiritual now and then maybe later they're religious, or it might go the other way around. But we need to make space for knowing that, we're all here to have the choice to believe in what we want. So that would be the example there with spirituality, just spiritual boundaries and not allowing other people to tell you what it is that you need to believe in. And this can come up a lot with family, like with your parents, if your parents are still around, or if you have that experience. Parents can be the primary ones that make their children have to believe in what they believe in. And I hear this a lot with religion, just like specific religions that, I won't get into, but I do see this a lot. And I saw this growing up too. So firsthand, understand how that feels. There's a lot of religious shame out there for this reason. And then I think the last one here is relationships. So romantic, family, friends, and I was just kind of getting into the family one right now, but I believe that having boundaries with these relationships are very hard, especially when it comes to your parents, your siblings, and your romantic partner. Not to say that you may not struggle, at times with friendships and having boundaries there, but this can show up with like physical space, in your home, and even sexual boundaries, right? Like in romantic relationships. And so you got to be able to know what it is that you are not comfortable with. Like, what are you not comfortable with? Are you not comfortable seeing someone too many times a week? Do you need more space? Or do you want to have more connection, right? Like, you would need to know what it is that you need in order to be able to communicate this. And knowing what you're not comfortable with. And so this can be challenging if you don't tell someone what it is that you think or what you feel or what you need, because these people might not know how to honor and respect what your needs are. So this is a reminder, right? Like, people don't know what you need unless you speak up and you let them know what it is that you're not comfortable with. And if you don't know what that is, then you can't teach someone how to respect you and what your needs are. So this is how boundaries would come into place in relationships. Now, I did talk about this a little bit already with work, but time boundaries, they still apply to all of these above. Time with family and friends, time with your romantic partner if you have one, time boundaries with friendships, intellectual time for yourself, time boundaries, right? Reading all day long, or you're trying to learn something all day long, right? Like, that's a lot of burnout that can happen for a brain. So having like just a balance and not overdoing it with any one thing in general, all of these areas, right? We need a little bit of all of them, really. And then something that I've noticed is that People that tend to struggle more with boundaries, they tend to have limiting beliefs and negative narratives about themselves. And so this is what makes it most difficult for them to establish boundaries. And these are some of the thoughts that I usually see that they struggle with. I'm going to lose that person. I am a difficult person. I won't have any friends if I say no. No one will like me. And these are just thoughts and beliefs that we create from maybe someone that told us something in our childhood. Sometimes it could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be a parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be an older sibling. We absorb some of these thoughts and they go into our subconscious mind, and then they run our lives, and we don't always know why we feel that way or why we have these fears. So that was something that I thought it was important to mention. And then some questions that I would like to leave you with is, you might want to ask yourself, if you're struggling with any of this, in what areas of my life am I violating myself and not showing up for myself? Why does this happen? What are the root causes of this? What beliefs am I carrying that create this lack of boundary or boundaries, if it is in more than one area? And usually it is for most people. It's not just one specific area of their life. There might be a theme in their life where they're lacking boundaries in other areas. Another thing that I notice is that there is a theme with self-worth, low self-worth, low self-esteem, because they don't honor their own values, their own needs, their own feelings, and overall beliefs. And, if you don't show up for yourself in this type of way, if you don't give yourself space to respect how you feel and what it is that you need in all of these ways, well, then you won't really know how to tell someone else how to respect all of these different areas of your life. So I think I will conclude that here, because this is going on now to 22 minutes or so, but hopefully that was helpful. And yeah, boundaries are important. Pretty much it's where you start and where you end, and sharing that with others so that way they know how to honor and respect your time, to respect you as an overall individual. And we just teach other people to better understand this through our boundaries. And boundaries are actually out of love. So if someone makes you feel guilty about putting a boundary there, that actually just means that your boundary no longer supports their lack of boundaries with what it is that they're looking to get from you. So that is something to remember. And the people that love you and care about you and want the best for you, they do want to know what your boundaries are, because the last thing that they would want to do is upset you and make you feel like you're not respected or, being considered in these types of ways. And sometimes your mind might want to go to default with feeling guilt trips and feeling bad about being a bad person when you're not used to implementing these boundaries. But that's just how it is at the beginning, until you get more comfortable and used to speaking up for yourself and giving yourself that space to be respected and to be considered in these ways. I hope that helps all of you, for whoever is struggling with this. I know that this was something difficult for me at the beginning, and at times still challenging, especially in maybe romantic relationships as well as with my primary family. But yeah, so let's see. Other than that, I do hope that you all are having some plans for this weekend, something fun to do. And, something that I do like to say at the end of my podcast is, something that I have adapted from Dr. Pat Allen. She's one of my mentors. She's now no longer practicing couples counseling and marriage family, but she always says we all need something to do. We all need someone to love, and this doesn't have to be limited to romantic love only. And we all need something to do. So I am wishing you all an amazing weekend, a safe weekend most importantly, and I will catch you all in the next episode. I am signing off now. Take care. Bye.